Imagine you build the most magnificent, permanent house for God on the entire earth.
Oh, the ultimate achievement.
Right. And you literally watch a cloud of divine glory just roll down from the sky to fill it. I mean, you have the wealth, the ultimate wisdom, the absolute divine favor.
Yeah, you have everything.
Everything. And then, well, you just let your own human weakness tear it all down from the inside out.
It's devastating.
It really is. Today, we are unpacking the tragic fall and the profound triumph of King Solomon. So welcome to our deep dive.
I'm really looking forward to this one. It's just such a visceral story because, you have all the elements perfectly aligned. It's the absolute zenith of an entire civilization, and yet...
The internal foundation just completely crumbles.
Exactly. It completely crumbles, and it forces us, and you listening, to ask what it actually takes to build something that lasts.
Yeah, and to really understand how and why that happens, we are examining a custom set of lyrics today from the Come Follow Him project.
Right, for the June 22nd through 28th lesson.
Exactly, the lesson titled, Hear Thou in Heaven Their Prayer. So we're looking at the reigns of David and Solomon.
And what makes these specific lyrics such a powerful lens for this historical narrative is that they embed exactly 16 phrases from the King James Version of the Bible.
16.
Yeah, 16. But they don't just, awkwardly drop them in. They weave those ancient texts alongside original poetry. And it shows how the Old Testament reality of a physical temple points directly to the New Testament promises of Jesus Christ.
And what's really unique about this deep dive is that we actually have 4 completely different musical arrangements of this identical text.
4 very different vibes.
Oh, entirely. We have a grand classical choral arrangement with a full orchestra and brass, which is called Fill This House with Glory.
That one is massive.
It is. Then there's From Who All Blessings Flow, and that one is a solemn, Eastern Orthodox style male choir.
Which is very stark. And then we also have a reverent traditional mixed choir accompanied by just an acoustic piano. That one is called To Walk in All Thy Ways.
Right. And finally, there's a deeply intimate, prayerful female vocal with the harp and cello titled Hearken to My Cry and Prayer.
And, the way those different genres color the text, it actually changes how we interpret the scriptures themselves.
Well, it really does. It's fascinating. But to really feel the impact of that text, I think we need to step right into 1 Kings chapter 8.
Let's do it.
Okay, let me just read the opening lines of verse 1 here. It goes, King Solomon stands where the cedar beams rise, as the cloud of God's glory rolls down from the skies. O Lord my God, hearken to my cry and prayer. Answer us from heaven as our hearts prepare.
Okay, so let's look at the scriptural mechanics happening here right away. That line, the cloud of God's glory rolls down, is a paraphrase of 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 10 through 11.
Which is such an intense visual.
Oh, it's wild. The cloud literally fills the house of the Lord so fully that the priests can't even stand to minister. It's just physically overwhelming.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the lyric shifts and it quotes 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 28 verbatim. Hearken to my cry and prayer.
Okay, let me stop right there, actually, and ask a question about this framing.
Sure.
Because why start the song by focusing on architecture and weather? We get the cedar beams and the clouds before we even get to the actual prayer itself.
Right. It feels a bit disconnected at first.
Yeah, why not just jump straight into the spiritual plea?
Well, think about the historical context for the Israelites here. For generations, they have been a wandering people. I mean, their place of worship, the tabernacle, was essentially a mobile tent.
Right, they packed it up and moved.
Exactly. So transitioning to a permanent stone and cedar temple, that is a monumental shift in their cultural and religious identity.
Oh, I see.
By anchoring the lyrics in the physical elements, the cedar beams, the text reflects that sudden, overwhelming permanence. God isn't just visiting them anymore. He is moving in.
Wow, okay, that makes total sense. It's like the cinematic establishing shot of an epic film before any of the dialogue even begins.
That is a great way to put it.
It grounds the spiritual plea in a very real physical space.
Right.
You can almost smell the cedar wood, right? You can see that heavy cloud.
And listening to the musical arrangements really highlights the sort of dual experience.
How so?
Well, when you hear the grand orchestral version with the brass fanfare, it mimics the massive scale of that stone temple and that rolling cloud. It feels huge.
Right.
But then when you listen to the intimate female vocal with the harp, it zeroes right in on that verbatim phrase, hearken to my cry. It feels like, just one person standing in the middle of all that majesty, just whispering a prayer.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It perfectly captures the tension of 1 Kings chapter 8. God is infinite enough to fill a temple with a cloud, but personal enough to hear a single cry.
Exactly.
Well, that permanence we just talked about, it sets up a really fascinating pivot as we move to the chorus. Let me read this.
Go for it.
There is no God like thee, in heaven or in earth below, who keepest covenant and mercy, from whom all blessings flow. Put thou upon thy covenant people thy holy name, whether in temple stone or in our hearts, evermore the same, that we may turn to thee, to walk in all thy ways. Hear thou in heaven our prayer, and fill this house with praise.
So the concentration of King James text here is incredibly heavy.
Yeah, you can hear it.
But it's what the lyricist does with the text that really matters. We start with, no God like thee, in heaven or in earth below, who keepest covenant and mercy.
Which sounds very familiar.
Right, that is near verbatim from 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 23. But then the text does something brilliant. It says, put thou upon thy covenant people thy holy name.
Okay, and where is that pulling from?
So it takes the ancient priestly blessing from Numbers chapter 6, verse 27, where God promises to put his name on the children of Israel.
Okay.
And it smashes it together with Solomon's dedicatory prayer from 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 29. Yeah. And by combining those two specific references alongside the original poetic phrase, whether in temple stone or in our hearts, the text fundamentally shifts the locus of worship.
Okay, wait. So it's cross-referencing 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19, right?
Yes, exactly.
Moving from the physical building made of stone straight into the human heart.
You nailed it.
I want you, the listener, right now, to really think about what that means for you personally. Because in the ancient world, putting your name on something meant ownership. It meant protection.
It's a huge deal.
Right. When a building has God's name carved into it, it's dedicated to his purposes. It is completely set apart from the secular world. So if God puts his name on your heart, the implication is that you are the dedicated space.
You are his protected property.
Exactly. Which completely changes the entire responsibility of the believer. You aren't just, visiting a holy place once a week. You are hosting it constantly.
Hosting it constantly, yeah. And if the human heart is the new dedicated space, that completely changes the rules of the religion.
It really does. You can't just drop off a goat at the altar anymore and call it a day.
No, you definitely can't.
And that uncomfortable realization is exactly what gets unpacked next in verse 2. Let's look at that.
Read it for us.
But thou wouldst dwell in more than cedar, gold, and stone. My body can also be a temple, thy spirit's very own. Thou askest not for ox or bull, nor lamb upon the fire, a spirit broken, heart contrite, for this is thy desire.
You can just see the scriptural layers continue to build here.
Yeah.
More than cedar, gold, and stone is directly referencing the expensive materials detailed in 1 Kings chapter 6.
Right, the building supplies.
Exactly. And then my body can also be a temple, makes that 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 paraphrase explicit.
Right.
But the real mechanism at work here is the shift in the sacrificial system. Askest not for ox or bull, a spirit broken, heart contrite. That pulls directly from Psalm chapter 51, verse 16 through 17, while also echoing Hosea chapter 6, verse 6.
Okay, here is how I visualize this whole shift. It's as if God is downsizing his real estate.
Yeah. Downsizing, I like that.
Yeah, like he's moving out of this grand, gilded, billion-dollar cathedral and choosing to move into the small studio apartment of the human heart.
The studio apartment, that's perfect.
And the crazy thing is, he actually prefers the studio apartment, but the rent is completely different now.
Right, the currency has changed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He doesn't want the external visible sacrifice of an ox on a fire anymore. He wants the internal invisible sacrifice, a broken spirit and a contrite heart.
I love that downsizing metaphor so much because it actually answers a question Solomon himself asks during the dedication.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In 1 Kings chapter 8, Solomon looks at this massive, beautiful building, and he asks this stunned, almost bewildered question. He says, will God indeed dwell on the earth?
Wow.
He realizes even the heaven of heavens can't contain God. So how could a stone house possibly do it?
That's a very fair question.
It is, and this verse provides the answer. God won't just dwell on the earth. He desires to dwell inside his people.
And, a broken heart is arguably a much harder sacrifice than a burnt ox.
Oh, for sure.
because it requires completely surrendering your ego.
Yeah.
And listening to the Eastern Orthodox style male choir arrangement really drives this home for me.
Oh, the capella one.
Yeah, that version strips away all the instruments. It's just raw human voices echoing together.
Yeah.
And it perfectly mirrors how the lyrics strip away the gold and the cedar down to just the raw human spirit.
It's a deeply, deeply vulnerable place to be.
It is.
And unfortunately, that vulnerability brings us to the historical reality of what actually happened next in the story.
Right. Which leads us to the bridge. This is the climax of the narrative, and honestly, the story takes a very sharp, tragic turn here.
It's rough.
I'll read the lyrics,
Yeah.
and they carry a really heavy emotional weight. Though God had filled his heart with wisdom, warnings were ignored. His heart was not perfect with the Lord. Oh, turn us back and keep us, Lord, and make our spirits whole, that no other love nor God lay claim upon our soul.
So this is where we confront the failure of the old covenant system.
Yeah.
Filled his heart with wisdom points directly to 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 12. I mean, Solomon was famously the wisest man alive.
Right, the gold standard of wisdom.
But then the line warnings were ignored points us to 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 9 through 10, where the Lord had appeared to him twice, and explicitly commanded him not to go after other gods. And then we get the most devastating line of the entire song, his heart was not perfect with the Lord. That is pulled verbatim from 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 4.
It's just a gut punch. I mean, he had everything.
He really did. And this right here is the typological move of the entire text.
Okay, wait, pause on typological move. For those of us who aren't theology professors, what does that actually mean in this context? Are you saying Solomon's physical building was essentially like a rough draft for what Christ would do later?
Yes, exactly. In theology, a type is a historical event or person that acts as a symbol. It foreshadows a greater spiritual reality to come. Solomon built the perfect physical house, right? Flawless in its cedar and gold. But as a human king, he completely failed to keep his own internal house, his heart, perfect with the Lord.
Oh, wow.
He allowed foreign wives and other gods to lay claim to his soul.
Wait, okay, look at the timeline here. If Solomon, who literally had God's visible glory roll down into his living room, who was personally gifted divine wisdom, if he couldn't keep his own heart from wandering, then the physical building is ultimately useless.
Right.
Like, we don't stand a chance on our own.
That is the exact tragic realization. It proves that human wisdom and external religion are just not enough. A perfect building, or, even perfect attendance at a perfect building, cannot fix a wandering human heart.
This completely recontextualizes everything we just read.
Doesn't it?
Yes. When you first hear the chorus, "Hear thou in heaven our prayer and fill this house with praise," it sounds like a happy, triumphant celebration of a new building.
A dedication party.
Right. But after you hear the bridge, you realize the chorus isn't a victory lap at all. It is a distress signal. It's an urgent, desperate plea for God's mercy. We are begging God to turn us back and keep us because we know we cannot secure our own hearts.
The bridge makes the Christ connection totally explicit. It reveals that the ultimate temple isn't safe unless the ultimate king is guarding it.
Wow.
Solomon failed to protect the temple of his heart, and the Old Testament sacrificial system couldn't save him. We desperately need a savior to step in, make our spirits whole, and secure that space for us.
And when you listen to the acoustic piano arrangement of this bridge, it exposes that fragility perfectly.
It really does.
It doesn't sound booming or confident at all. It sounds like someone quietly admitting they are broken and they just need help. Which brings us to the final chorus and the outro. And the perspective shifts here in a really, really powerful way. Listen to how the text closes.
All right.
O hear us, Lord, from heaven where thou art. Accept this house of temple stone. Accept this house, my heart. Hosanna to our God on high. Hosanna to the Lamb who fills his house with glory, the eternal great I am.
Notice the crucial pronoun shift right there in the middle.
Oh, from our to my.
Yes. Throughout the entire text, it's been us and our, like, answer us from heaven as our hearts prepare. But at the very end, it narrows down to a single, unavoidable point. Accept this house, my heart.
You just can't hide in the crowd of the congregation anymore.
Right. It demands personal accountability. And then we get these culminating New Testament titles.
the Christ connections.
Exactly. Hosanna to the Lamb ties directly into Revelation chapter 7, verse 10.
Okay.
We get the repetition of fills his house with glory from 1 Kings chapter 8, verse 11. But now we know that house means the individual believer.
Right, the studio apartment.
The studio apartment, and it ends with the eternal great I am, which draws from Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, and Jesus' own declaration of his divinity in John chapter 8, verse 58.
Bringing it back to the music one last time, the grand classical choral arrangement completely changes the emotional impact of this climax.
Oh, absolutely.
Because after all that vulnerability, when the full orchestra and the brass fanfare hit that final line, the eternal great I am, it feels like a triumphant, universe-shaking reality. It's absolute.
It's massive.
But if you listen to the traditional choir with just the acoustic piano, the exact same words leave you in this state of quiet awe. It feels like a whispered realization that the creator of the universe is actively residing in your own chest.
Which beautifully encapsulates the dual nature of what 1 Kings chapter 8 is teaching us. God is both infinite, filling the heavens, and incredibly intimate, dwelling within a contrite heart.
So what does this all mean when we distill it down?
Well, if we pull the core truth from all these sources, it's this. No matter your faith tradition, the narrative of 1 Kings chapter 8 is universal.
Right.
Solomon's magnificent temple of stone, the gold, the cedar beams, that was all just the blueprint. It was a physical rehearsal for a spiritual reality.
Yeah.
The actual finished house that God always intended to build is a people who bear his name internally.
The studio apartment.
Yes, the studio apartment, the temple of the human heart, secured not by our own wisdom, but by the Lamb.
It leaves us with something really profound to think about. I want you to consider this as you go about your week. If God's glory rolled down like a visible physical cloud to fill Solomon's temple, what does it actually look like in your daily life when God's glory fills the temple of your heart?
That's the real question.
What does that look like when you're stressed at work, or when you're dealing with family conflict, or when you're just alone with your thoughts? And given Solomon's tragic fall, how do you actively ensure that no other love or God lays claim to that space today?
It requires constant vigilance. As we've seen, a perfect building doesn't guarantee a perfect heart.
It really doesn't. We encourage you to dive into the scriptural sources for yourself. Read through the block for June 22nd through 28th, especially 1 Kings chapter 8, and see these phrases in their natural habitat. Because it's one thing to hear us talk about the blueprint. It's another to explore the cedar beams and the history yourself. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive as we unpack the tragedy and the triumph of the temple, both the one made of ancient stone and the one beating in your chest.